Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Joined the League of Villains. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. When people first hear the term criminal underworld, they usually assume a series of tunnels that run underground where villains meet up, concoct all sorts of evil schemes, and business deals with one another. Well, they aren't exactly wrong, there is so much more to it than that. While many believed it to be deep, they never fully questioned just how deep. The underworld ran much deeper than just a few tunnels. There were actually a few communities living there, including the Hades group. Across Japan, it had several bases, including Tamakamai, Hokkaido, Okinawa Island, Nagano and Kyoto. However, its primary base of operations was located under the city of Kanazawa, a city that was near the sea, and had a very low crime rate. Due to the low crime rates, there were very few heroes, and even fewer police investigations, thus making it the ideal base for Hades. Kanazawa was a peaceful place rich in history and beauty. As such, no one would ever suspect that it was host to one of the most dangerous organizations of all time. Ironically though, Hades' presence was what kept Kanazawa safe, as other criminal groups were warned by Shiro never to attempt or set foot anything near the city and cautioned that it might draw unwanted attention. However, Shiro was clever enough to ensure that a few of his pawns attempted some smaller crimes, such as petty thievery, minor vandalism, or breaking into someone's home. Why, one might ask? It would be very suspicious, not to mention abnormal, if any area didn't have any sort of criminal activity or villains. Referring to how deep the criminal underworld was, Hades was the owner of the deepest and most spacious spot. While it possessed other bases, all of which varied in size but mostly ran similar activities, Hades' primary headquarters and base of operations was special. Nearly all their affairs and undertakings took place right here, and it was considered by many to be the heart and soul of Hades. What made this base stand out from the others, as well as other villainous organizations, was that it wasn't just a center of operations for the group. It was an actual city. Hades' main base was an underground city that dwelled beneath Kanazawa, where it contained several buildings. Apartment blocks for the residents, slaves and ordinary members, that were at least 3 stories high. Most of the residents were adults, with children being transferred there when they come of age. The apartments were a shared space with bunk beds, a small kitchen, with basic requirements, and a shared bathroom. These were mainly found in the east section, though there was 1 or 2 in the north and south sections. In the north section, the arena, where most of the battles between competitors, be they members, slaves, or outsiders, took place. Outside one of the stands, there was a bookmaker area where people could place bets. The pit, a special type of arena where martial arts battles were fought. In these matches, individuals enter a caged arena, fashioned into an octagonal shape, basically the same shape as a UFC ring, and fought with nothing but their fists and feet. In other words, it was a battle of strength and skill. The usage of quirks was strictly forbidden. The hospital, where individuals, mostly competitors, were sent when they were injured or fell ill. The place had several individuals with quirks related to healing, though there were skilled doctors and nurses as well. In the west section, the children's section, where all children from the ages of 7 to 17 live. When a child turned 18, they moved out into one of the apartment blocks along with the other adults. The only adults that lived in the children's section were the caretakers Yumi, Utada, and Lobo. Located in the west section where Yumi has access to the sea. In addition, Lobo had a personal training ground to teach certain individuals hand-to-hand combat, as well as engage in a few friendly wrestling matches with some other members. The training grounds. As the name implies, these are special grounds where slaves are taught to hone their abilities to fight in the arena and perform regular tasks for Shiro. It includes a shooting range for long-range quirk users, weights and punching bags for building up physical strength, a combat simulator to test a person's melee fighting ability. Slaves were primarily trained by Kuchulain, Hercules, and Diamante. The 3 volunteered for it so that slaves would be well prepared when they fought in the arena. Akuma occasionally lent his assistance in this area. In the south section, the casino. Shockingly enough, Hades had its own little casino. It was a 5-story building with multiple rooms pertaining to multiple games, and to cater to the number of people playing. Villains, regardless of where they were from and who they worked for, liked to gamble. Some did it for fun, while others did it to earn a profit. The canteen. This is where members generally went to eat on break. At the canteen, there were several chefs working along with waiters and waitresses. Over the years, Shiro had captured numerous people with quirks and skills related to food, and he made sure to take full advantage of their abilities. The power station. This is where the entire city is supplied with electricity. With the aid of several electric-type users, the city was always lit up with everything running properly. Solar energy was provided through the assistance of Nico, Rika and Shida. Using her quirk, Nico harnessed the power of the sun into solar panels, which were given batteries to store the energy, so Nico wouldn't have to constantly charge them. The armory. As the name implied, it's where Hades stored most of its weapons, including drones, guns, melee weapons, bombs, etc. While most members relied on their quirks and fighting abilities, other less skilled members used weapons to better their chances of defending the place. This was near the center where the Hades main building stood. Additionally, there were bars located in each section that could be used by anyone. In Shiro's own words, everyone's life here is shitty enough without restricting booze. However, at the center of the city was Hades' main building. This was a 13-story building in the shape of a triangle standing up. Here was where everything happened. From Rika's inventions, Kyoto's experiments, business negotiations with the black market, Shida's fashion designs, group meetings to Shiro punishing someone for their failures. At the entrance to the building, there were 2 statues of Cerberus, the pet of Hades, the Greek god of the dead, which the organization was named after. The top floor of the building granted the owner a perfect view of the entire city. In the basement area of the main building was the security room where the activity of slaves and their conditions were monitored, and the entire city was observed using cameras. There were also several cameras on each floor of the main building, in case anyone decided to pull any funny business. To add to it all, the building was protected by several defenses including machine guns, sleep gas that could be released through the vents, electric floors, and force field barriers. It was basically a fortress. Floor 13. Throne Room. Currently, Shiro was holding a meeting with his most trusted members and several of his special slaves, though Rika was an exception. Shiro sat in a large black chair with 3 dogs, 2 coming out from the top corners, while 1 was in the middle. He was currently listening to Robin give a full report on what she had observed while spying on the heroes. While Hinikyoku had examined the girl's memories, he wanted to hear it from her lips personally. Robin was a petite young girl of 12 with dark skin, short brown hair with red highlights, and grass-green eyes. For clothes, she wore a purple t-shirt with the kanji for spring at the back, accompanied by patterns of different birds at the front and sides. She also wore a white miniskirt with red floral patterns and pink sneakers. In attendance were Nico, Rika, Nightmare, Speed Demon, Shino, Blade, the Elemental Assassins, the Wild Villains, the Volcano Thieves, the Arsonists, Team Succubus, Pain, Disco, and Kuchulin. One hero was asked to attend. Pain wore black high-heel boots that stretched over her knees, a black latex leotard with no sleeves, and left a portion of her chest exposed, so that her cleavage was visible. Her back was also exposed, and her leotard was held by a black choker with spikes around her neck. Furthermore, she wore 2 long black fingerless gloves with spikes on the knuckles, 2 earrings of daggers, a piercing on her tongue, and a whip on her right side. Regarding her physical appearance, she was of average height, possessed purple hair styled in a concave cut, purple eyes, lips, and nails. Kuchulin was a young, handsome-looking man with bright blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. In addition, his body was tall and muscular. His attire consisted of a fur cape held by a scabbard, a linen wraparound skirt held by a belt and buckle, and black boots made of fur tied together by straw. He was mostly bare-chested with clear visible images of Celtic tattoos across his body. To put it simply, he looked like a Celtic warrior. Nightmare, real name Yung, was a young woman roughly in her early 30s, with long white hair and silver eyes. Her figure was slim, and her height was moderate. She wore long white socks, accompanied by black heels, and a black and white dress. Her nails and lips were painted black, and she had a black bow on top of her head. In addition, she carried a black and white parasol. To sum up her appearance, she was a Gothic Lolita. She was one of Shiro's primary torturers, though, unlike Pain, she was more skilled in psychological torture. It was all thanks to her quirk. Wolfram, a mercenary that was a long-time business partner of Shiro. He usually took part in deals and gang fights. Thanks to his service he performed for All for One a few years back, he possessed 2 quirks. Metal manipulation, which he was born with, and muscle augmentation. He was a clever individual as well, managing to stay under the heroes and government's radar for quite some time. The Arsonists, which consisted of Combustion, Dokujin, and Gun Gale. Combustion was a tall man roughly in his early 30s with a muscular physique. He had short spiky blonde hair and gold eyes. His attire consisted of an open, sleeveless red hoodie with his chest exposed, red and black wristbands, baggy pants with red lines contained by 2 smaller orange lines on both sides of his legs, and black foot pads with the soles of his feet exposed. His quirk was enhanced combustion. Dokujin was a short man in his late 20s. He had spiky messy orange hair and an undercut hairstyle with a low fade and blood red eyes. He wore a red top with an image of a tiger on the front, black combat trousers and boots. He also wore black and red fingerless gloves that were separated by a white line. His quirk was Fire and Fury. Ungale was the tallest and oldest of the trio. In his mid-40s, he had a rather muscular build and fashioned a black tight top, traditional army camouflage trousers, a camouflaged army hat, and brown combat boots. His hair was black, with a short beard stache, and his eyes were topaz. Unlike his companions, his facial features were foreign, having originally come from America. His quirk was gun state. Team Succubus, which consisted of Aphrodite, Eros, and Lorelei. A team that specialized in finding targets, seducing them, and then either killing or getting information out of them, sometimes both. All of them were moderately tall, possessed well-developed bodies, and were in their late 20s, but most of all, they were stunningly, unbelievably, irresistibly beautiful. If one were to declare them the best-looking Hades had to offer, there would be very few arguments. Aphrodite had long pink hair that stretched down to her knees, accompanied by pink eyes, nails, and lips. In addition, she wore a light red one-shoulder dress that left her left arm and leg exposed, pink high heels, and a bracelet on her left arm with a love heart at the center. Her quirk was love manipulation. Eros wore light trousers and an open shirt, both of which were red-orange, and white shoes. He had purple eyes and messy purple hair in the form of an undercut. His skin was also tanned. His quirk was pleasure. Lorelei had long green hair tied in a ponytail and eyes. Her attire consisted of a black leather jacket, trousers, a black t-shirt with the kanji for love on it, and black high heels. Like Gun Gale, she was a foreigner having come from Germany. Her quirk was persuasion. Then there was Disco, head of the nightclub at Hades. He possessed dark skin, frizzy brown hair, and chocolate brown eyes. He wore a yellow jacket, with a blue t-shirt underneath, yellow trousers, and dance shoes. In addition, he carried a gold cane with him. His quirk was Dance Battle. There were other members, but they were too busy with other matters to attend. Robin explained everything she had heard in detail. From what the heroes discussed at the meeting, why they left, and what they discussed at UA. Flashback. On the orders of Shiro, Robin attended the set meeting of heroes and police, where she learned a lot about their plans and Deku. It wasn't that hard to get in. As smart as these pros were, and as fortified as this building was, they weren't prepared for what she could do. Then again, no one ever was. She had done this job for 3 years, 3 months after she joined, unwillingly, Hades. She spied on rival gangs, like the League of Villains and the 8 Precepts of Death, to find out what they were up to, and if they were making a move against Hades. She spied on politicians to see what they were up to when not in public. It was always good to have some material to blackmail. She spied on police and hero investigations to see if they had any information about someone they were looking for, or if they had discovered any information that could lead straight back to them. She always performed her missions alone, and with care. However, she had a high success rate, hence why Shiro found her valuable. There were times when she did fail, though that was usually because of something like her target plans changing, and meetings being held in confined rooms where she couldn't get access to. When spying on someone from one of the more dangerous groups, she proceeded with extreme caution, because in this case there was a high chance she could die or be discovered. When she spied on the Precepts, she found herself nervous in the presence of Overhaul. The man's quirk, which allowed him to disassemble and reassemble anything he desired, was both impressive and terrifying. There was also the way he spoke about the world, how it was sick and needed to be cleansed. It really freaked her out. When spying on the League, she was terrified of atrocity. The man was a complete psychopath. No wonder Shiro hated him. She didn't feel nervous when it was individuals like Tomura or Kurogiri or even Viper. However, she was curious as to why she never saw All for One. He was a true leader of the League, so why wasn't he more active in its activities? Why did he hide within the shadows, even amongst other shadows? Sadly, Robin never found out. The meeting between the heroes and police proceeded rather smoothly. They discussed what they knew and their sources of information. Then they went into detail about how they planned to rescue the hostages. Robin internally snorted when she heard that. No one, except for Deku and Razor, had ever been rescued from Hades. These heroes were dreaming of a fantasy, one that would be shattered in a few days' time. When it came to the parts about Deku, Robin was genuinely surprised that the former slave had suffered panic attacks just from hearing about Hades. She knew it would have been traumatic for him, but she didn't think it would be that bad. It had been months after all. She was a little annoyed at the attitudes of the heroes. They were seriously underestimating Deku just because he didn't have a quirk. They had no idea what he was capable of. Endeavor was the worst. That's why she was happy and intrigued at how the small furry, and her opinion, downright adorable, principal, made the number 2 hero back down. When there was an alert that the alarms had gone off at UA, Robin figured Shino and Blade were at work trying to capture Deku. Rather than just escape while the pros filled out, Robin hid in Midnight's hair until they arrived at UA to investigate further. It was risky, but hey, it never hurt to have extra information. At UA, she eavesdropped on the entire discussion between the heroes and police, later between them and Deku. She didn't hear anything particularly new. She was a little confused as to why Deku said Hades ran from Nagoya to Yamagata. Sure, there was a base in Yamagata and a safe house in Nagoya, but Hades didn't run entirely between those two places. It was big, but not that big. Bases were split up into different parts of the country. The exciting part was when Deku insulted Endeavor and knocked him out when the man attempted to incinerate him. That's when Deku blinded him and knocked him out. From her perspective, it appeared Deku had gotten stronger, though to be fair, Endeavor was blinded by rage and didn't think straight. Nonetheless, it was impressive and funny. As soon as the meeting concluded, Robin flew out of the room in bug form, and then proceeded to leave the building, and then the campus. Flashback end. Ha, Shiro laughed uncontrollably. Upon listening to what Izuku did to Endeavor, he just couldn't help it. It was so funny. Several other members joined in laughing. Kuchulin and Rika were mildly impressed. Kiritor and Zookeeper, unsurprisingly, were disinterested with the conversation. Kiritor would have rather been performing experiments in his lab. However, the mention of his arch-nemesis did pique his interest slightly. It had been a long time since he and Gang Orca fought, and the next time they did there would definitely be blood. Shiro stopped laughing and addressed the audience before him. Oh man, if I wasn't so focused on killing him, I'd actually congratulate Deku on what he did to that chubby bastard, he admitted. It seems he's grown a pair of balls since I last saw him. I wouldn't say Endeavor is chubby, Aphrodite argued. He's more of a tall, sturdily built man with a muscular physique. She licked her lips. Shiro and several others rolled their eyes. Aphrodite was always like this when discussing men who she found handsome or attractive. Which makes him look fat, Volcano countered. Seriously Aphrodite, where the hell did you get your taste in men? Screw that. Where do you get a taste in anyone? Gus Boy snickered. It was a commonly known fact that all members of Team Succubus were bisexual, or at least 2 of them were. Aphrodite claimed to be pansexual because in her mind, gender was irrelevant in love. The former smiled at Volcano seductively, her cheeks blushing red. Ah, what a tale that is, where do I even start? She wondered while fantasizing. You don't, Kiritor stated in a bored tone. I didn't come here to listen to you preach about all the people you've slept with. I came here because Shiro asked me to listen to this little bird's report. He turned his attention to Robin, who shuddered. Most of which has turned out to be boring and a complete waste of my time. I could be doing much more productive things in my lab. By the way, I'm interested in that new livestock you brought in, Shiro. I feel they may be useful in what I'm creating. Robin shuddered. Kiritor always creeped her out. Not just because of the way he looked, but the way he looked and acted towards others like they were just materials for his experiments. Come on Kiritor, Bear had intervened, putting his arm around the latter's shoulder. This is a concerning matter for all of us. Even if you don't find it interesting, it's going to pull you away from your experiments. Especially since Gang Orca is involved. Kiritor scowled. I suppose. Bearhead grinned at his friend. Of all the members on the Wild Villains, he was arguably the nicest. However, he could still be quite brutal when he wanted to be. Speaking of which, the raid was pretty successful I hear, Kiritor commented. You performed it quickly and with precision. I take you had most of the lower members assist you. We wouldn't have had to move quickly if that machine that forced people to stay away lasted longer, Blaze butted in. Becca frowned. Blaze, as I said already, that device was just a prototype. I hadn't even gotten the chance to test it out first. It was bound to wear off after a short while, Rika explained. Furthermore, I didn't have that much time to make it. That earned a few exchanges. Is that so? Blade sneered. He was about to speak again when Nico interrupted him. None of this is Rika's fault, it's mine, all eyes were on her. I was the one who asked her to develop a gadget like this to assist in the raid only a few days before it happened. Any issue that occurred with it is as much my fault as it would be Rika's. Blade glared at her, while Rika was silently glad that Nico defended her. She had been under a lot of pressure to make that device, and she had been afraid it wouldn't work. Shiro didn't tolerate failure, even from her. Well, if there was a good enough reason for it, he would look the other way. If that's how it was then it's fine. The mission was a success either way so I can look past it, Shiro smirked. Without looking at her, he spoke to Rika. Rika, I want you to improve on this device for the foreseeable future. It could come in quite handy when defending this place, or when we need to isolate populated areas like from today. I'll get to work on it straight away, Rika replied quickly while bowing. I promise, you won't be disappointed. Shiro nodded in acknowledgement. His thoughts then drifted back to Deku and the upcoming raid on Hades. He was going to have his hands full the next couple of days, especially with the new arrivals. He had a few surprises in store for the captured students. Ones he'd like to implement as soon as possible. There was also the upcoming battle, not to mention the possibility of a battle between him and All Might. Just the thought of it made him tingle with excitement. So, what happens now? Robin asked, earning confused looks from everyone. Shiro even cocked his head to the side at her question. They know you know about their plan now, and they know about several members. Aren't you going to strike first to make sure you have the winning chance? In an instant, Shiro was right in front of Robin, holding her chin, and smiling amusedly. His eyes were locked directly with hers. My dear sweet Robin, I've already struck first, and now it's their turn. Also, why go to the prey when the prey can't come to us? Shiro justified. And so, what if they changed their plan? Not knowing makes it more fun. Robin wasn't surprised in the slightest. While she may not have known Shiro like the others, she knew he enjoyed a thrill. There was one other thing on her mind. What about Deku? What's to become of him? She asked. Shiro's smile grew. Oh, I've something special planned for him. As for how I get him here, well, Shiro started. Let me be the one to bring him in, Dokujin shouted. I've got a score to settle with that quirkless bastard for what he and that fashion bitch did to me. The man hated Deku and Shida for how they humiliated him in the arena. Ever since that day, he wanted to hunt that brat down and incinerate him. Up until now though, he never had the chance. Oh, get over it. Robin snapped back. You lost one fight, one. And because of that, you decided to vent your anger out on him where we, the kids, lived. Some of them still have burned scars from that time. Dokujin glared at Robin. Before he could say anything back, his teammate spoke up. Apologies, Ms. Robin, our comrade here still doesn't know how to control his temper. He is learning, although at a slow pace. Gun Gale apologized in a stern voice. What happened that day was my fault for not believing he would retaliate in such a way, Combustion informed her. That led to chaos and children being injured, and the unspeakable aftermath. I know an apology will never suffice. After all, you lost a dear friend as a result. We are sorry though. Robin bit her lip. She could still remember that day very well. Don't apologize to this bitch. I'm not sorry, and I'd do it again if I could, Dokujin barked. Less than a second later, a blade of light was at his throat, with Shiro holding it steady by the handle. The look in his eyes was stern, yet furious. Oh, Shiro murmured in a low, dangerous. How strange. If I remember correctly, you were definitely sorry after I was done with you. You were even begging me not to kill you. The blade grazed a small part of his neck, causing some blood to flow out. You claim you would do it again, but I don't believe you. You see, last time I was willing to give you a small benefit of the doubt, because A, you were influenced into it by you-know-who, and B, I got to destroy Tenim, that sickening excuse for a villain group, which by the way just thinking about makes me want to vomit. You remember what I did to them, don't you? Dokujin's face went pale. He knew exactly what Shiro was talking about, and what he was insinuating. You should, shouldn't you? After all, I took pictures of it and spread them around Hades so everyone, except for the kids, could see. So, if you, for any reason, do what you're threatening to do, I will kill you the way I killed those bastards from Tenim, just as slowly, and just as painfully. Do I make myself clear? Dokujin nodded quickly. Everyone else, apart from Nico and Shino, shuddered at the memory. It wasn't a pretty sight. Shiro had taken extra care when killing those men for what they did, and the very nature of their group. Their deaths were without a doubt the most excruciating Shiro had ever performed, as far as they knew at least. But, Shiro said softly. Now on to more important matters. The heroes will be attempting to raid our base in a few days, so I expect you all to be ready. From what Robin has gathered, it seems Dobby has told them about the east entrance exit. However, it's safe to presume that the heroes will be looking for a way in via the west from the sea. The east entrance exit was just on the outskirts of Kanazawa. It was an underground passage that villains use when trying to avoid the police, or if they wanted to come and watch the fights. The passage, while relatively small at first, gradually grew bigger as one walked along. There were several tunnels that lead to different areas underground. However, checkpoints were set up just so villains could make their way to the north section. There was also a way to reach the south section. However, a member who had good knowledge of the tunnels could only get there. It was possible to enter the west via sea, however the entrance was hidden and couldn't be reached unless someone swam there. I'll assign each of you your positions and jobs for that day. Kyoto, you'll be at the west section with Yumi and Aqua, just in case you have to deal with pests like Gang Orca and Selkie. Kyoto nodded. As for the rest of you, you'll be dealing with the pests from the east. I wouldn't lie to you all, this fight will be tougher than what we're used to. There's also the chance it will go to open ground because of who's participating. There was a collective group of surprised stares and stunned silence. Shiro, are you really okay with that? Nico protested in alarm. For years we kept hidden from the rest of the world, only showing our faces when necessary, and allowing nothing but our names to be known. Shiro glanced at her. It was rare to see Nico so emotional, although he couldn't exactly blame her. If you come into the light now, there is no going back. You will be known by all and have a target on your back for the rest of your life. Shiro chuckled in amusement at her statement. I appreciate your concern, Nico, but, with all due respect, I've had a target on my back for years, he joked. Now it's just going to get bigger. Besides, I always knew this day would come. As much as I would like to, I can't stay hidden in the shadows forever. Nico lowered her head and said nothing more. It would have been pointless anyway, Shiro was rarely wrong. By the way, I thought I asked everyone to come, so why aren't they here? Disco. Also, Kuchulin, why didn't Akuma come? Shiro asked politely. The two he questioned spoke for the first time in this meeting. Sorry boss, but I needed Rapper and Angel to look after the nightclub. You know how crazy the dance floor can get, right? Disco responded in a deep flamboyant voice. Shiro nodded in understanding. The action that went down in that club was intense. Akuma said he was busy and that he wasn't interested. Pru responded in a North Dublin accent. He sends his apologies. Shiro looked at him disbelievingly. He said he couldn't give two shits about this, and to tell me that since I didn't ask him in person to go fuck myself, didn't he? He declared bluntly. Pru opened his mouth to respond, but found that no words were coming out. What happens if I say yes? Pru asked awkwardly. Then he and I are going to have a nice long chat later, with our fists, Shiro answered enthusiastically. I don't care if he doesn't show up. As long as he does his job, I'm happy. That matter came to an end quickly. Nico, where is Cerberus? He questioned. He never misses these meetings unless it's for good reason. He is dealing with a certain rodent problem at the moment, Nico replied. This one was from you-know-who, so it couldn't wait until later. Shiro raised an eyebrow. It seems that bastard Atrocity was making a move against him. When would you learn? Sending his minions here was the same as sentencing them to death. Now, on to a few questions, you may ask, Shiro continued. Pain, regardless of how much fun you had last time, you are not allowed to torture Deku, because that's something I'll be doing. Heroes, you are not allowed to make any sort of move towards him. I want him to suffer before he dies, not enjoy himself. What? Heroes whined. But boss, he's a virgin. You know how I like to. Whatever sex Joker reference you're about to pull, don't, I'm not in the mood. No means no, Shiro retorted. The same goes for your teammates. There were a collective number of groans after that. Heroes sulked at not being able to get his chance with Deku. Pain was just as disappointed. She had been looking forward to spending some quality time with Deku. Last time, his screams were magnificent, and the faces he made when she was cutting him were so beautiful. Robin, you've done well, Shiro applauded the child, who was relieved at the praise. As a reward, take the next few days off. You've earned it. Robin was ecstatic that she was getting a break. She really needed a few nights of sleep. Nico makes sure she gets back safely. As for the rest of you, this meeting is over. Return to your duties until you receive further instructions. And with that, the meeting ended. Hades. Children's section. The day had, at last, come to an end, and the students were getting ready for bed. The sleeping quarters were 2 long rooms, gender segregated, with an assortment of bunk beds. Kids and teenagers alike were entitled to bunk wherever and with whomever they wished. The students mainly bunked with others from their class and school, though there were 1 or 2 exceptions. Most of them were discussing the events of the day. Who they met, what they learned, and what the future held for them here. They were hoping that they would be rescued soon, but kept their fingers crossed. Shoto and Meizo returned later, both looking tired. Meizo especially. The two were gone a while. I pray nothing bad happened, Ibarra said softly. Same here, Asui added. Todoroki, Shoji, where did you go with those two? And what did they want to talk about? The 2 students briefly stared at each other. They hadn't been told to keep their training a secret. Yumi and Lobo have both decided to take us under their wing and train us, Meizo announced. I'm learning Luchador wrestling, or as it's better known, Lucha Libre. That caught some of the other students' attention. That's awesome, Tetsu exclaimed. Totally man, Kirishima chimed in. You know, I always thought you like a Lucha wrestler, mostly because of your mask, and your hero outfit. Thanks, Meizo replied uncertainly. For most of his life he had been conscious of his appearance, yet he never really cared about what others thought of him, not much anyway. It made him uncomfortable that people feared him because of it, that they stayed away from him, without even getting to know the real him. Things had been that way since the incident when he was a child. That single moment in his life caused him to start wearing that mask. Because if he didn't wear it, if he didn't cover his face, people would be even more afraid of him. Yumi is teaching me how to use my powers without projecting them from my body. She's teaching me how to freeze and heat up objects such as water, simply by relying on the particles in the air, Shoto explained, much to everyone's interest. That would be most impressive, Sako said. You're already strong as you are now. With that kind of power at your disposal, just imagine how much stronger you'll become. That opened a new wave of debates among the students. One student was glaring at Shoto. He hasn't changed a bit, Inasa thought spitefully. Still as cold as him. Alright, that's enough chicos, Lobo called out. Time for bed. You've got a big day ahead of you tomorrow. So, buenas noches. The students would have argued, but they felt the effects and fatigue of today kicking in. They decided to call it a night and work on their next move tomorrow when they had more strength and knew more about the place. Oh Lord, please give us the strength and will to survive in this, the darkest of all kingdoms, Ibarra prayed. What they didn't realize was how eventful their first day would be. Atrocity. Atrocity was in his office typing up a report about the batch of Nomu that were completed. He typed up when they were made, the quirks they possessed, and ranking them on who was strongest. In addition, he was working on the blueprints for his latest weapon design. Shock Blade. It was a weapon specifically designed for an electric-type user like Deathbolt. The weapon itself was 2 sword handles, but no actual swords. The user had to pour a little of their quirk into the blade's handles, and 2 swords would appear instantly. They would also stay out for a while, so the user didn't have to worry about getting exhausted. Contrary to how people saw him and how he acted, Atrocity was a rather intelligent man. In the League, he came up with designs for several weapons and worked on experiments of his own. While Viper was the head of the science department, he was the best when it came to technology. It was the main reason why he had been a leader in the League of Villains when All For One was running the show. It wasn't just because of his powerful quirk, oh no, All For One valued skill over quirk. If a powerful quirk was all it took to become a leader, then the League would have more leaders, some of which would be downright stupid. He had even made a new chainsaw for Toxic Chainsaw to support his quirk, Toxic Secretion. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. "Come in," he invited. What came in was a subordinate of his who went by the name Rubik. Rubik's true appearance was unknown to him. The man was around Tomuera's height, and his entire body was covered by a metallic Sentai suit that had multicolored cubes as a pattern. There were 2 pure white spaces where his eyes were. In his arms were the files he requested. "The files you ordered Viper to retrieve are here," Rubik said softly while placing them on the desk. "Good," Atrocity replied. "You may leave." Rubik nodded. "Sir, if I may," Atrocity shot him a look. "Why do you wish to search for him? Is he worth the effort? Especially with everything else going on in your life?" Atrocity considered this for a moment. Rubik brought up a good point, however. He felt this was one issue he really couldn't let go of. "He is an issue which I've left unresolved. While I'm committed to dealing with the current problems such as Tomuera and Shiro, I feel as though I won't be able to move on from this one until I've dealt with it personally," he explained. "Do you understand?" Rubik nodded and turned to leave. When he was gone, Atrocity quickly finished his report to look at the file. "Alright, time to find out everything I can about you," Atrocity growled but placed more venom on the next word. "Deku." That was what the file was about, Deku. All For One's quirkless pet that had, God knows how, managed to elude him 2 if not 3 times already. Ever since the hospital incident, he had been focused on dealing with Tomuera and expanding his control in the criminal underworld. However, he hadn't forgotten about Deku. That quirkless bastard stole from him and humiliated him by not dying at both Hosu and Kamino. He was an unresolved problem that needed to be exterminated. The problem was he didn't know where Deku was, he didn't even know what his real name was. When he was part of the League, Atrocity never thought that much of him to investigate. But since he had evaded him numerous times, he had decided to take Deku seriously and look through his files to find out what he could on the boy. "Okay, so his name is Izuku Midoriya," Atrocity started. He read through the file slowly at first. However, soon he was reading rapidly through it, and then he was rereading it again and again. By the time he stopped, Atrocity was boiling with rage. His desire to kill the boy had just multiplied by 10. He shouldn't exist. How dare he exist? Does he understand what it means? Atrocity roared as he slammed his fist down on the desk, breaking it in 2. He wanted to kill something. He needed to kill something. That's when he noticed on one of the cameras that a group of his underlings had arrived back from a robbery. Walking slowly, he headed for the door. 30 minutes later, the floor and walls were covered in blood. One might have said it was painted. There were bodies as well. Some were scorched entirely until they were nothing but ash, others were missing body parts or had been crushed, and some were impaled in several places. Atrocity, the orchestrator behind this massacre, was sitting at the center covered in blood with his legs crossed. He was panting from exhaustion. Most of his rage had been quelled, but not all of it. He took out his phone and dialed a number. "Pruin," Atrocity said. "Why yes boss," she stammered over the phone. "I take it you just witnessed everything that just happened through one of your little bitches," he interrogated. She was afraid of him. That was a good sign. "Yes. Before you say it, I'll do it," Pruin answered fearfully. "Whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do it." The Atrocity snarled. "Izuku Midoriya, Akadeku. Find him. I don't care how or what you must do to succeed, but find him. And then tell me. If you don't, well, I don't think I need to explain after what I just did now, do I?" "No," she answered almost immediately. "I'll get started right away." Atrocity hung up and stared at his hand covered in blood. It was then he made a dark promise to himself. "I swear, Izuku Midoriya. I will hunt you, I will find you, and I will slaughter you. I will break you so badly that by the time I'm finished, your soul will be as broken as the garbage right in front of me." Hades. Children's section, the following day. A loud horn boomed throughout the area, causing many to wake up instantly, while causing others like Kirishima, Tetsu, Inasa, Mineta, Kasei, Mina, and Sasuna to fall out of their beds. When they did, they each fired up their quirks ready to defend against whatever was attacking them. The children started laughing when they did. "Eyes, chill," Kitsune urged them. "It's just a morning alarm. Meaning it's time for all of us to get up and work." They all relaxed when they heard this. Although they were a little curious as to what kind of work they would be doing. They knew it was a job suited to their abilities, but that was it. The students got up and were brought to a cafeteria, one designed specifically for the children's section, and had breakfast. Much to their surprise, there were a decent amount of cereals and fruits. When they finished eating, they headed outside where they were greeted by Yumi and Utada. Alright boys and girls, since you're all new here you get a tour of the city, Utada announced with a smile on her face. However, the students and younger children were only confused by what they said. I beg your pardon, but perhaps we misheard you, Tenyu said. I believe you said city. Utada grinned. No, you heard me perfectly, she replied. You see, Hades has several bases across Japan Yumi took over. However, its primary base, which is this one, is an actual city. It took a couple of seconds for everyone to register what they heard before dropping their jaws. Some let out cries of disbelief. The sisters laughed at their reactions. It was like that whenever someone new joined. Deku reacted the same way when he was brought here. That's right kiddies, this your base is a city, Hei announced as he relaxed his elbow on Tenyu's shoulder. Bag. Tenya screamed as he leapt back while accidentally bumping into the others. Where did you come from? My apartment, Hei answered honestly. Tenya shot him a baffled look. That's when he remembered what the man's quirk was. How did you get here without anyone noticing? One of the children asked. Hei blinked. I ran. My quirk gives super speed, which is how I'm able to move from place to place quickly. There was a collective amount of O's and got its. To be fair, none of them had ever seen his quirk. Hey, not that I'm against it or anything, but what are you doing here? Yumi asked curiously. You never take part in tours for newcomers. True, but this time is an exception, he answered. The two sisters couldn't help but note how enthusiastic he sounded. That was odd. Hey, I rarely took part in events like this. He was always off doing whatever Shiro or Nico ordered him to do, training, or fighting in the arena. He didn't really do tours for newbies. He was one of the nicer members, and a good friend to the sisters, but still, it wasn't like him to actively participate in jobs like this. As someone who moved quickly, he wasn't fond of taking it slow. Since I now have a student, I wanted to get to know him and then start training him, Hei explained. It took everyone a moment to register what he just said, and another moment to realize who he was referring to. Hold on a second, Tenyu declared confused. Okay. 1 second's up, Hei declared. Tick marks appeared on Tenyu's forehead, showing he was growing more annoyed by the second. That's not funny, Tenyu yelled. It is a little, Mina chimed in, causing a few other students to murmur in agreement. Tenyu's frustration began to rise, and his patience was beginning to thin. Hey, I think Mr. Ida here is asking you is why is he your student now? When was this decided? And why wasn't he consulted first? Does he not get a say in any of this? Yumi translated. Those sorts of questions. The speedster gazed at the mermaid with confused eyes before a light bulb switched on over his head. He then turned to Tenyu to give a proper explanation. Oh, sorry about that. Just got a little excited, you know, since this is the first time for me and everything. Hey, I apologized sheepishly. Usually when there's a new arrival or two, whether they're adult or child, they're taken on by another member with a quirk that's similar to their own in one or some other way. Though there are moments when they're taken on by someone like Lobo or Hercules just to help them develop their fighting capabilities for the arena. Through the first wave their quirk develops, and they become more useful to Hades. The concept was relatively easy for the students to grasp, and as a result, they didn't question it any further. It was what happened with Shoto and Meizo when they were taken under Yumi and Lobo's wings. Tenyu could understand where Hei was coming from, considering both their quirks were centered around running and speed, thus making them a perfect match for one another. Anyway, Shiro gave me the go-ahead, so let's go, Hei exclaimed excitedly. Also, since these are his orders, you can't refuse. So, you're stuck with me. Sorry. He wasn't sorry at all. He was ecstatic at being a teacher to Tenyu, because he'd never been given the chance to be one before. People with speed quirks like theirs weren't as common as he would have liked, unfortunately. Yumi and Utada could tell from the look on his face that Hei really wanted to do this, though it made sense as he'd never been given the chance to before. The chance to pass on what he knew to others. Very well then, Tenyu decided with a determined look. I will accept your offer to study under you and learn new skills from your wisdom, if they will help me in any way down here. Hei blinked. That was the strangest way of saying yes he had ever heard. But he wasn't going to complain. Ichako internally sighed. Oh, classic Ida. Great, let's get started, Hei announced. Wait, Tenyu retorted. I have to go on this tour first. I at least want to see what this city, which I'm still having trouble believing is real, is like. We can begin afterwards if you prefer. Hei cocked his head to the side at Tenyu's answer. So, if I'm hearing this correctly, you and I can start training right after you finish seeing all of Hades for the first time? He inquired. Yes, of course, Tenyu replied. Hei stared at the boy blankly before swapping to a more mischievous grin, on the sisters knew all too well. Though, he shouldn't have said that, Yumi thought. Better prepare yourself, Ida. Hei's personality is the equivalent of a rollercoaster, fast, fun, and unpredictable. Utada internally laughed. Then, without warning, Hei grabbed Tenyu by the arm and hoisted him on his back, thus placing him in a piggyback position. Wait a second. What are you? Tenyu protested in alarm. Hold on. Hei ordered while still grinning. It was then that he took off sprinting at max speed around the city, with Tenya desperately holding on for dear life. He stopped by the training grounds where Kuchulain, Hercules, and Diamante were conversing. Hercules was a large, muscular man with short red-black hair and piercing yellow eyes that belonged to a lion. He wore what appeared to be a sleeveless lion skin jacket with the head of a lion as the hood, brown wrist cuffs, a Grecian black skirt held by a brown belt and gold buckle, and warrior sandals. Diamante was a beautiful woman with long light blue hair, diamond blue eyes, and tanned skin. She wore a sparkling catsuit that came with white heels. None of the heroes noticed their presence. This is the training grounds, which is part of the West section. This is where you will receive training from those pro heroes over there, Kuchulain, Diamante, and Hercules. Tenya was stunned at seeing pro heroes as captives of this place. He didn't get the chance to dwell on it as Hei was moving quickly again. They arrived at a 3-floor white building with a medical sign on top. This is the hospital where people go when they're injured from work or sick. Your friend Bakugo is there. Tenya was concerned about Bakugo's well-being but couldn't ask because Hei was moving again. They went by the arena which Hei gave a basic explanation of. Then they came to a darker area which was the pit. Tenya was amazed at the cage ring. It was like the one UFC fighters used on TV. He was, however, a little unnerved at the fighting going on inside and the way people cheered at it. Currently, there was one man being beaten into the ground, while the other was sitting on top of him beating him repeatedly. This was Japan's very own devil hero, Deku. Deku was a handsome man with spiky crimson red hair, red eyes, and a well-developed body with muscles visible on his upper body. His attire consisted of karate trousers with red flames on the left side and blue flames on the right, red and blue gauntlets for each arm respectively, and black foot pads. And currently, he was looking very angry while he mercilessly punched his opponent. Geez, what's got him so pissed off? Tenya without thinking. Hei chuckled. What hasn't got him so pissed off? I mean seriously, there's hardly a single person in this space he doesn't want to beat the crap out of. The guy has serious attitude problems. Fuck you speed demon. Deku yelled having heard him. Then he noticed Tenya. Why the fuck do you have a kid with you? It doesn't matter, because after I'm through with this guy you're next. And that is our cue to leave, Hei announced as he started running again. He took Tenya to the power station where he witnessed several electric users charge generators. He took him by the apartments, one of which Hei stayed in. They then arrived in the south section where he saw the canteen and the casino, where Hei threw a successful bullseye at one of the dartboards. Throughout Hei's tour, Tenya struggled to hold on as the man dashed throughout the city. The guy was fast, faster than anyone he'd ever met. Faster than his brother even. There were also several moments when he thought he was going to throw up from the way he was traveling, but luckily, he didn't. While he wasn't particularly fond of Hei, Tenya certainly didn't hate him. Finally, they arrived at the city center where Tenya saw the main building for the first time. So, yeah, this is where everything big happens. Shiro holds all his meetings, Shida makes clothes and support gear, Kyoto, total dick by the way, does all his experiments, Hei explained. You get the idea. I'm grateful that you've given me this to yourself and got to see the city and everything, Tenya said slowly. But could you please put me down? I feel exhausted from holding on to you. Hei abided by his request and set Tenya down gently. Due to what he just went through, Tenya decided to remain sitting down for the next couple of minutes. Well, said a familiar voice. Look who we have here. Tenya Ida from Class 1A, and Hei, Aka Speed Demon, a name he really hates but can't do anything about, waiting outside the main building of Hades City. What, were you hoping I'd make you both some new, and more stylish, clothes to wear? Well alright, if you insist. The two men turned and noticed Shida walking towards the building with a playful grin on his face. Shida, what are you doing here? Shida merely shrugged. I work here. I help Rika out with her work and assist in developing support gear for members. I also work in designing and creating new outfits for people, Shida beamed proudly at that last part. Yumi messaged me the situation. Ida, if you're going to be training under Hei, which is a first, you'll be needing proper garments. Clothes that will be light, friction-proof, suited for your quirk, and most of all, will help you strike out among individuals here. Would you do me the honor? Tenya found himself stunned at the current situation. Shida wanted to make him a new outfit just so he would have an easier time training. You want to make me a new costume? Is that allowed? He asked. Of course. I'd need to take some measurements, but there's no actual rule against me making outfits for anyone, Shida replied enthusiastically. I designed for Shiro a lot and most of the others. I helped my uncle with his own hero costume, and now he's one of the most fashionable heroes around. Tenya was curious about this uncle of his, but said nothing. What a nice guy. He's willing to help me despite just meeting. I should recommend him to the others, maybe he can make some clothes for them as well. I must also speak with Bakugo regarding how he treats him. Well, if you are offering, I suppose it would be rude of me to turn you down, Tenya announced. Very well, I shall leave it to you. Shida beamed. Great, let's go upstairs and start. Hey, please help him up. I imagine his legs are still shaky after the trip you just took him on. Sorry, I apologize. As he helped the boy up, Tenyu remembered something important. Hey, when we're up there, can I ask you guys something? Tenyu asked politely. This has been on my mind a while, especially after learning the truth last night. You want to know the truth about Deku, right? Shiro suggested, causing the three men to jump in surprise. The leader of Hades was just leaning against the wall with a cup of coffee in his right hand. He let out an amused chortle at the trio's reaction. No matter how old he got, or how many times he did that, appearing out of nowhere in front of people and scaring them shitless never got old. Master Shiro, Shida stammered. What are you doing here? I live here, Shiro pointed out. Also, I'm drinking coffee. Will you guys get up at 6.30? I get up at 6.00. I get tired like the rest of you know. He then flashed a smirk at Tenyu. So Ida, how are you enjoying your new home so far? Tenyu glared back at him. This place isn't my home. My home is with my family and Yue. If you say so, Shiro chuckled. Speaking of your family, how's brother doing? Right now, he's crippled, isn't he? Being paralyzed at the waist down ever since his encounter with Stain. Tenyu gritted his teeth in anger. How dare he? How dare this man mock his brother? You? Tenyu snarled. Shiro was in front of him in an instant, allowing his face to reach Tenyu's level. Tenyu was stunned at how fast this man was. He witnessed it during Bakugo's fight with him but couldn't believe it. Shiro was on a different level than the rest of them. He may have even been able to give All Might trouble. Shiro put his hand to Tenyu's face, causing the boy to flinch. Shiro flashed an amused, yet cruel, grin at the teenager. Don't even bother. We both know it's true, Shiro stated. Tell me though, what's it like admiring that family of yours, admiring your brother, yet at the same time, completely resenting them, especially good old Tensei? Tenyu's eyes widened in shock. He tried to talk back, to argue about the absurdity of this man's claim, but couldn't find his voice. Oh, don't give me that. I have a colleague that looks through memories, through past thoughts, so I know what you really think of them. You resent them for the way they've treated you. You resent them for being the least favored son, for being seen as someone with no expectations, and a replacement ingenium, should your brother fail to live up to the task, which he already has. Shut up, Tenyu angrily snapped. You don't know anything. Shiro laughed cruelly. On the contrary, I know everything. Tell me, young Ida, have your parents ever praised you like they did your brother? Shiro asked in a polite yet mocking tone. Have they ever given you the same kind of encouragement or attention he received as a child? Tenyu froze. Of course they have, he argued weakly. Oh really, when? Shiro taunted. Well, Tenyu started but stopped midway. Growing up he didn't receive that much praise for anything, barring his school grades from time to time. His parents were always so focused on Tensei because he was on the path to becoming a pro hero and continuing their family legacy. Then he became ingenium, and all efforts were focused on helping him in his hero duties. As such, Tenyu's parents were always working so they didn't spend that much time with him. They rarely showed up at his parent-teacher meetings or parent days at school, though Tensei did show up in their place. When he mentioned that he wanted to be a hero, they were fine with it, however they didn't offer him the same type of encouragement they gave Tensei. As such, his relationship with his parents was strained. You care about them, yet you also hate them for the way they see you. You love your big brother, and you look up to him, but at the same time you loathe him. You loathe him because he's admired and acknowledged by everyone for the perfect hero he is, or should I say was. You, on the other hand, you're just his little brother. Just Ingenium's little brother. No one sees you as anything more than that, they don't expect anything from you, because Tensei is already what they need, what they want in a hero. In their minds, you're just a replacement should things go wrong, and that's all you'll ever be. Tenyu's eyes widened in despair. No, you're wrong. That's not. Shiro grinned at Tenyu's reaction. He was slowly breaking. Time to deliver the final blow. Oh, but it is. Although, there is something that sets you apart from your brother, something that makes you stand out from him. Unlike him, you're an attempted murderer, Shiro taunted. Please, stop, Tenyu whimpered. When things are getting good, I don't think so, Shiro retorted. You tried killing someone, the hero killer Stain I believe. All because he crippled your brother because he ended his career as a hero. Shiro's grin got bigger. You wanted vengeance. You wanted to hurt him, to break him, just as he had done with Tensei and so many others. Most of all, you wanted him to die by your hand, to feel the rush and thrill from spilling his blood while achieving true satisfaction. Shida and Heiai just watched while Shiro got under Tenyu's skin. The man had performed these many times to different people. He always knew what buttons to push and what made them tick. Murder for revenge. I can't say I don't sympathize with you, Shiro admitted, his sounding legitimately sad. When I was a child, I wanted to hurt every person who had ever wronged me and those closest to me. I wanted to snap their necks, to break every bone in their pathetic bodies, and to stab them until their corpses were unrecognizable and completely drained of blood. Shiro got a little riled up while he was talking. He always did when talking about his past. Tenya shuddered at the descriptions. Tell me, how did you want to kill Stain? He inquired. Beat him to death. Run him through a wall, or two, or maybe even three. Or wait, perhaps you wanted to drag him into an alley alone where you could stab him until he bled to death. The possibilities are endless. There are so many ways for someone to die, both peacefully and excruciating. Tenya stared at the ground in shame. As much as he didn't want to admit it, he did want to kill Stain back then. He wanted to make him suffer as he had like Tensei had. What makes you stand out even more is that you openly admitted to being a fraud, a fake hero. You owned up to your shit, which is more than can be said for the others, Shiro continued. I must confess, it's an admirable trait. You're quite similar to Deku in that regard. The only real difference between you two is that he actually succeeded in killing someone. This time Tenya did look up at him. The expression of shock was plastered clearly across his face. Midoriya killed someone. That was impossible. He wasn't a killer, the teachers and Midoriya himself confirmed it with him. Judging from that look on your face, I'm guessing you've told otherwise. It's not true. Deku killed 2 people the last time he was here, granted they were in self-defense, but he still did it. The police and UA staff believe he didn't kill anyone, likely because he doesn't. I don't know how, but his memory of his time in this place is inconsistent. Certain things didn't happen the way he said, and information he knew was all wrong. Tenya was left confused by Shiro's explanation. How could Midoriya forget things like that, especially the fact that he killed another person? The only explanation I can think is that All For One, being the slight bastard he is, tampered with his memory, making him forget about certain things when he came here. After all, a person with that much trauma would need at least a year to recover before becoming active again. Otherwise, there's no way he would be able to continue with his work for the League, let alone want to fight someone like Bakugo. Tenya slowly digested all this information. Trauma. Killing in self-defense. Midoriya, just what the hell happened to you here? Tenya wondered. Right now, you're probably wondering what the hell happened to Deku here, aren't you? Tenya gulped, he'd been too obvious. I'll leave 2 gentlemen to tell you while I go and check on the others. By the way, Shida makes sure his outfit isn't like the flashy piece of crap most of his family wear. Do something that's more villainous, darker, and makes him look both handsome and badass. Right away, sir. Shida shouted, saluting him. But, Shiro said as he began walking away. Oh, and Ida, do think about what I said regarding your family, because deep down you know it's true, and it'll be easier for you to grow if you admit it. Tenya remained silent as he watched Shiro walk away. This man, he was evil no question, but there was something about the way he did things he just found intriguing. He didn't quite understand it, he just had so many questions on his mind that he couldn't think straight. Thankfully, Shida and his new concerned mentor were kind enough to escort him inside, so he wouldn't have to. Shiro was a mystery to him, but right now so was Deku. With Yumi and Utada. The sisters had been giving a tour to the rest of the students and children, and so far, it had gone well. They had shown them the west section and introduced them to the heroes that would be training them. They visited the north and saw everything that was important, though Akuma looked annoyed when they came by. Now they were in the east section looking at the apartments. I still can't believe that guy Hey did that to Ida, Achako muttered. No kidding, Kendo chimed in. He was acting like a 3-year-old compared to the first time we encountered him. Don't hold it against him, Utada defended. Hey I's never had a student before. He's just excited, that's all. They didn't press the issue any further and continued walking. They noticed different people walking about. Some to work, some from work, some to the arena or canteen, some to any corner of the city they were permitted to. While they were walking, Kendo, from the corner of her eye, noticed someone leaning in at an alleyway trying to stay out of sight. She had a slim yet curvaceous figure, with blonde hair in the form of curly locks. She wore a maroon hoodie, jeans and maroon heels and sunglasses. Around her ankles were golden snake bracelets. Wait a second, is that? No, it can't be, she thought, stunned. What's she doing here? She was about to go over and talk with her when she heard a scream. A man was running towards them, sweating. They didn't know what he was running from, but it must have been serious. That's when his collar activated, and he collapsed onto the ground, shaking violently from the pain coursing through his body. Robert, Utada cried. Utada, Yumi, please help me, Robert pleaded as was continuously filled with electricity. I wouldn't do that if I were you, a new snobbish-sounding voice warned. Walking up the road was a man with long gray hair and eyes, black sneakers, and a gray tracksuit top and bottoms. In terms of faces, he wasn't the most attractive-looking person. To add to it all, he was staring at the new arrivals like they were things instead of actual people. Kyo, Yumi growled. What do you think you're doing? Kyo raised an eyebrow. What do I think I'm doing? I believe I'm punishing this insect for acting out of line. He attacked me unprovoked and got in the way of my personal business. Bullshit, Utada declared. Robert is a repairman for Hades. He doesn't go around randomly attacking people unless it's to defend them, unlike you. Kyo glared at her. He had never liked these sisters because of the way they acted towards him. He especially despised Yumi because of her constant rejection of him. However, among the students, one of them caught his eye, a girl with vines for hair. She had her eyes closed and was praying for this man's survival. Seriously, praying. Did she truly believe God would help her here? Oh no, most certainly not. He would need to make her learn her place in this world. Without warning, he used his quirk to fire red energy at the students, who barely dodged. While they were moving, he used his quirk to create a whip of energy and haul the girl to him. Shiozaki, Yui cried. The bar was hauled right in front of Kyo, who smiled evilly at her. The girl in question was startled by what Kyo had just done. She tried to activate her quirk to fight back, but instead felt electricity coursing through her body. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Kyo had a device the size and shape of a phone in his hand with a dial on top. As you can see, I've set your collars so that if you activate your quirks, you will receive an immediate shock, Kyo explained. So be a good girl and do as I say, otherwise you and your friends will be dying sooner than expected. What do you want? Ibarra stuttered. She couldn't understand what she had done to deserve this. She hadn't committed any sins against Hades. All she had done was pray for the man's safety. What I want is for you to shut the fuck up and know your place, Kyo barked. PFFT. Praying in a place like this, are you for real? Do you think God will actually save you? Ibarra didn't say anything, she was too scared to. Nothing to say, huh? Maybe you'll talk more after I'm finished with you. Then, without warning, Kyo reached out and grabbed the front of Ibarra's outfit and ripped it off, exposing her chest. He then used his quirk to quickly rip off the rest of her clothing until she was completely naked. What the fuck do you think you're doing? Yumi screeched. You bastard. Get away from her. Hiryu shouted. The rest of the students were horrified at what was happening. However, the one most horrified by what was happening was none other than Ibarra, who was kneeling on the ground with her arms covering her body and tears beginning to form in her eyes. Several students, from all classes and schools, and Yumi, attempted to activate their quirks to save Ibarra. Kyo wasn't having it, however, and shocked them until they were on the ground. You really don't know when to shut up, do you, Yumi? That's one of the things I don't like about, next to the whole constant rejection that is, Kyo muttered. Why would I ever want to be with a scumbag like you? Yumi snapped back. Besides, I've told you and everyone else a million times, I'm asexual. I'm never going to be with anyone. You can only keep using that excuse for so long, Kyo pointed out. No matter. I'll get to you in a minute. Kendo stared helplessly at her friend's situation. She had never felt more useless in her life than right now. Her gaze wandered back to the alleyway where the figure was just watching the commotion. What are you doing? Help her. Kendo internally screamed. The figure remained motionless. Why would you try and save her? You're a hero, aren't you? While she hadn't recognized her at first, Kendo knew very well who she was. Now, if you behave during this, I promise, you and your friends will walk out of here alive, Kyo assured. Failure to comply will result in a slow, painful death on your end of things. Understand? Ibarra nodded slowly, tears now beginning to fall down her face. Don't listen to him. Robert shouted. He won't keep his word, believe me. He'll kill them no matter what. He won't allow any witnesses. Ibarra shot him a tearful look. The reason I attacked him was that he was raping 2 women in an alleyway not far from here, by threatening to hold them down with his quirk and using that remote to threaten them with death. I tried to stop him, but I failed. When he was finished, he killed them anyway, and I just started running. Everyone stared at him in complete shock. This man really did that, and now he was planning on doing the same to Ibarra. What a monster. Kaya, you bastard. You'll pay for this, Utada shrieked. Once Shiro finds out. Oh, but he won't find out, Kyo interrupted. Because none of you will live to talk about it. Do you think this is the first time I've done this? I've done it many times, however, unlike most people, I'm smart enough to cover up my tracks. Oh dear, their end tried to escape and I had to stop them. They tried to kill me. Excuses like those are quite believable around here. I mean seriously, who wouldn't want to get out of this hellhole? Yumi and Utada both gritted their teeth in frustration. Besides, what Shiro doesn't know won't hurt him, Kyo justified. Now then. Kyo bent down and licked the tear off Ibarra's face as he started to undress. The tone in his next word could only be described as evil. Let's have some fun, shall we? Ibarra was trembling violently. No. I don't want this. I don't want this. Please. God, someone, anyone, please save me. She internally screamed. Just then, Kyo was pulled back as he coughed up blood. Ibarra looked up in confusion. Kyo had an expression of pure shock painted across his face as blood ran down his lips. It was then they both noticed a hole through his chest. What I don't know won't hurt me. I think I'll be the judge of that, Shiro said in a soft, extremely dangerous voice. While not visible at first, Shiro soon materialized in front of everyone. He'd been using his quirk to stay invisible since then. The students and guardians were stunned. When did he get here? Class 1B, for all their fear, were relieved to see him for once. Kyo looked terrified. He'd been caught red-handed. Shiro, Kyo spluttered. Kyo, you conniving piece of shit. This is not the first time you've done it, you say, so then that means you've done it multiple times, and killed most of my property as a result, Shiro continued. What? No, Kyo fearfully tried to defend himself, but to no avail. You know the rules. I don't care if it's thievery, abuse, or murder, within good reason. However, rape is absolutely forbidden. I have always been clear about that. And what is the fate of those who break that rule? Shiro asked. Kyo panicked. No, please don't, he begged. I don't want to die. You should have thought about that before you became a rapist. Bye-bye Kyo, Shiro bid farewell. Light appeared around Shiro's body and then enveloped his hand through Kyo's body, making it appear like some sort of gauntlet. Then, he leaned back and ripped his arm back out, holding the remains of Kyo's heart. When he did, blood sprayed all over the place, but most all, Ibar. Her entire front body was drenched in Kyo's blood. However, she made no reaction whatsoever. She just sat there motionlessly with tears streaming silently down her face. It didn't take a genius to know she was in shock. Shiro sighed and undid the settings Kyo made on the remote. Then, much to everyone's surprise, he took off his jacket and placed it around Ibar, who remained motionless. Yumi, and who is this girl's friend, take her to the hospital, Shiro ordered. Utada take the rest of them back. I think they've been traumatized enough today, especially the younger batch. He wasn't wrong. The younger children were crying hysterically. They looked scared and traumatized by the ordeal. If you're going to ask what I'll be doing, well, it seems that I have some rats that need to be exterminated, Shiro said before heading off. Almost immediately, the students from UA went to Ibar's aid. Yumi helped her on her feet and asked some of her friends to help her to the hospital. All of Class B wanted to go, but Yumi only allowed a few. In the end it was Setsuna, Tetsutestu, Pony, Yui, and Kanoko that went. The rest of them returned with Utada. What they didn't notice, however, was that one student had stayed behind. Kendo stood there clutching her fist in rage. She had never felt so useless, so helpless in her entire life. She was training to be a hero, yet she couldn't even save one of her friends. Speaking of heroes, she turned and saw that woman was still in the alleyway, walking in the opposite direction. Confused and angry as to why she didn't help, Kendo marched over to her. She grabbed her by the arms and shoved her against the wall. What the fuck, Iwabami? Kendo growled. Why didn't you help Shiozaki back there? The snake here, Iwabami. Kendo had interned with her after the sports festival alongside Momoyo Irozu, in hopes of learning from her, though at the time they acted as her entourage. She really wished she had picked someone different then. Still, she never would have imagined they'd cross paths in Hades of all places. Iwabami, in question, stared at Kendo with a fearful and panicked expression. She hadn't expected to encounter Kendo down here. SHH, she hissed. Keep your voice down. People might find out who I am. I don't care if the entire damn city hears me, answer the question, Kendo ordered in a furious tone. How are you even here, by the way? Also, why are you so concerned about people knowing you're here? You're a hero, for crying out loud. Just stop, please, the pro begged. I'll tell you everything, just keep your voice down. Kendo backed up a little so the woman could tell her story. I was at the mall shopping for some clothes and makeup products for my next modeling, when suddenly there was this green mist that knocked me out. When I came to, I was here with several other people. This man Shiro explained everything, and I don't know, I just went along with it, Iwabami explained. As far as anyone else is concerned, I'm just a civilian. Kendo understood, she had done the same thing after all. Though she didn't hide who she was. Why didn't you help Shiozaki when she was in danger? You're a hero, even in situations like this you're meant to help others. So why? Kendo demanded. Why not try and help us come up with a plan to escape, or at least survive? Iwabami stared at the ground guiltily. She really didn't want to answer this question. She knew how Kendo would look at her. I'm sorry I can't, she started. It's because she's a fucking coward, that's why, a voice from not too long ago declared. Kendo and Iwabami turned to see Shiro grinning at them. The snake hero instantly backed away in fear. She had been found out. Kendo froze. She thought he had left. Oh, excuse me, ladies, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, Shiro revealed. And I must admit, it caught my interest. You left, Kendo blurted out. That's what you saw. In truth, I stayed behind to make sure you and your friends followed through on my instructions. When I saw you had stayed behind, I figured there had to have been a good reason. After all, you're too smart to do something like try and escape, Shiro said. Then I heard you speaking with Snake Bitch here and thought I'd give you a valuable life lesson. That's when he turned his attention to Iwabami, who shuddered at his gaze. Taking his time, Shiro walked towards Iwabami, who slowly retreated until she was back against the wall. The pro stared up at Shiro with an expression of pure fear. Shiro reveled in her fear and smiled at her. You see, Kendo, I've always known Iwabami was here in Hades, ever since she first arrived. Several other members know she's here as well. Iwabami flinched. Shiro knew she was here, but why didn't he say anything? The reason I didn't act on it was that this woman is no threat to me at all. Seriously, one of those younger brats is a bigger threat to me than she is. Iwabami's eyes widened. Did this man truly see her as that weak? Kendo was just as surprised. You see Kendo, this woman is nothing more than a fucking coward who cares more about her looks, popularity and career than actually saving people. The reason she doesn't act is that she's too scared to because her life is more important than anyone else. Believe it or not, most heroes are like this. Kendo heard a mirror cracking somewhere. Her once perfect vision of heroes as abettors of justice was crumbling. Aside from that, she doesn't know what she's supposed to do in this situation. She works in groups, be it hero or police, never by herself, and all she ever does is root out villains from their hiding spots. But as she's here all alone, she's completely useless. She doesn't know how to handle the situation, so she's hiding as a civilian until she gets rescued. Iwabami felt tears coming on. If you're wondering why I'm doing this, it's because I hate cowardice, whether it's from my own men or heroes. And that's why I'm going to leave this woman be, because she is not even worth the effort. Isn't that right, Iwabami? You aren't a hero. You're just a cheap slut who's more concerned with fame, fortune, and being a celebrity, rather than saving others. When things get tough, you break down crying like a little bitch because that's who you are inside. And that's all you'll ever be. Upon finishing his speech, Iwabami collapsed and started crying hysterically. She couldn't take it. Even though it was true, she couldn't take it. She didn't want to. So, she did the one thing she could, cry. Kendo stared without emotion at Iwabami. This woman was supposed to be a hero. No way. You see Kendo, this is what most heroes are like. All they care about is money and their image, nothing more, nothing less. Shiro finished as the final nail in the coffin was dealt. Kendo moved past Shiro, and the now humiliated Iwabami back the way she came, remaining silent the entire time. Shiro smiled. The girl disobeyed his orders, so it seemed like this was the appropriate punishment for her. Destroying her faith in heroes, the people she admired and believed in. What was a greater punishment than that? Deciding he'd done enough, he left Iwabami to her own emotions. He had an idea of how to use her, but would wait for another day. Already he was finding the new generation of heroes to be fun. He wondered how much more fun they would prove to be. Kendo walked back to where her friends were. She had a mixture of emotions running inside at the moment, but she wasn't sure how to express them. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She did realize one thing though. There are no heroes down here or up there, she murmured softly. None that will save us anyway. We have to do that ourselves. On this day, the one thing she never thought would happen happened. She lost her faith in heroes. It had been shattered and turned to dust. And would likely never return. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.